Welcome children, continuity of the lesson Mother's Day by J.B. Priestley. Children, in my last class I told you George and Doris were shocked because they had seen Mrs. Fitzgerald leaving her seat with a sudden decision. They did not know that she was real Mrs. Pearson. It was happening because of the effect of the spell that real Mrs. Fitzgerald had used. Now, real Mrs. Pearson, who was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, started talking to George and Doris. Now, listen, you two. She wanted George and Doris to pay attention to her words. I want to have a private little talk with Mrs. Fitz. Note the mistakes she was going to make. Once again, she was going to use the name Mrs. Fitzgerald by mistake. She looked like Mrs. Fitzgerald and she was going to use the name Mrs. Fitzgerald for other lady who was in that room. This had already created some confusion in George Pearson's mind. Now she did not want to repeat that mistake, so she corrected herself hastily. Hastily means quickly, with Mrs. Pearson. She told them that she wanted to have a small conversation with Mrs. Pearson. So I will be obliged if you will leave us alone for a few minutes. So she wanted them, George and Doris, to leave her and Mrs. Pearson for a few minutes. Where? In that room. She wanted them to leave them alone in that room for a few minutes. I will let you know when we have finished. She wanted to talk to them after her conversation was over. Go on, please. She requested them once again to leave that room and leave them alone in that room for a few minutes. She used the word please. I promise you that you won't regret to feel sorry for something. She promised them that they would not feel sorry for their decision of leaving that room or leaving those two ladies alone for a few minutes in that room. There is something here that only I can deal with. She told them, whom, George and Doris, that there was an essential matter that only she was capable of dealing with and nobody else. George and Doris heard the instructions of Mrs. Fitzgerald. Again, I want to remind you that she was not Mrs. Fitzgerald, she was real Mrs. Pearson. Now, George, rising, leaving his seat. I am glad somebody can. George was happy that somebody could deal with that matter because he wasn't able to deal with that matter. Because he was unable to deal with that matter, unable to handle that matter successfully, so he was happy that somebody else had come forward to deal with that matter. Come on, Doris. George told Doris to join him. George told Doris to accompany him. They wanted to leave that room and leave those two ladies alone in that room for a few minutes. George and Doris exit left. George and Doris go out of the room from the left hand side. As they go, Mrs. Fitzgerald moves to left of the small table. When George and Doris were going, or at the time of their departure, Mrs. Fitzgerald went towards the left hand side of the small table. Where was that table? That table was there in the room and sits. She sat there. Mrs. Fitzgerald was real Mrs. Pearson. She eagerly beckons Mrs. Pearson to do the same thing. These two words I want to explain eagerly, keenly, in an expectant manner. Keenly, in an expectant manner. This is the meaning of the word eagerly. And beckon. Beckon means to make a gesture with hand, arm, or head to instruct somebody to approach or follow. Once again, the word beckon means to make a gesture with hand, arm, or head to instruct somebody to approach or follow. She wanted, real message person wanted real message Fitzgerald to come towards her. So she beckoned her to do the same thing. Means she wanted real message Fitzgerald to come towards her. She had got an important matter to discuss with her. Message Fitzgerald, real message Pearson. Message Fitzgerald, we must change back now. Message Pearson insisted on getting their personalities changed again. She wanted to resume her former self, former personality. Immediately, we really must shows necessity. So this clearly shows that she wanted real message Fitzgerald to change their personalities immediately. Message Pearson, who was real message Fitzgerald, rising. Why? While leaving her seat, she wanted to know from real message Pearson why she should change their personalities. Message Fitzgerald, who is real message Pearson, who was real message Pearson, a bit more, because this has gone far enough. According to real message Pearson, the matter had crossed all limits. I can see they are all miserable, unhappy or uncomfortable. Real message Pearson had already seen that Doris and George were unhappy and uncomfortable, and I can't bear it. She did not want to tolerate that situation anymore. So she was in urgent need to resume her former self, former personality, to recover her former personality, to get it back again. I can't bear it. She did not want to tolerate it. She could not tolerate it. Message Pearson was real message Fitzgerald. A bit more of the same would do them good. She wanted real message Pearson to allow her to continue that practice, continue that behavior towards her family. She did not want to stop that behavior. She thought that the continuity of that type of behavior was going to do them good. Whom? George, Doris and Cyril. Making a great difference already. Real Mrs. Pearson was of the opinion that her rude behavior had already started making a great deal of difference. She moved to the right of the table and seats. After saying so, she went towards the right hand side of the table and sat there. Mrs. Fitzgerald, real Mrs. Pearson. No, this time real Mrs. Pearson seemed to be firm. She used the word no. I can't stand any more of it. She could not tolerate the continuity of that negative behavior towards her family anymore. I really can't. Once again she repeated her words. The repetition shows her emphasis on getting their personalities changed once again. We must change back. At all costs, she wanted to get their personalities changed. Hurry up! She requested Mrs. Fitzgerald to start the process of changing their personalities immediately. Please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. She used the word please to request Mrs. Fitzgerald. She wanted her to change their personalities once again. I am telling you this point several times. Mrs. Pearson, well, if you insist. Now, Mrs. Pearson, who was real Mrs. Fitzgerald, became ready to change their personalities once again because of the insistence of insistence displayed by real Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Fitzgerald, yes, I do. Please. Real Mrs. Pearson answered in the affirmative. What did she say? That she wanted her to change their personalities. She was insisting on it. She used the word please twice. She stretches her hands across the table eagerly. Now, real Mrs. Pearson spread her hands across the table eagerly with keenness. Mrs. Pearson takes them. Real Mrs. Fitzgerald took her hands into hers. Mrs. Pearson, quiet now, relax. Now, real Mrs. Fitzgerald told real Mrs. Pearson to be quiet and relax. Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald stare at each other. Now, Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald, both of them started looking at each other, muttering. Note the word mutter. Mutter means to speak in a low, quiet and angry voice that is difficult to hear. Mutter. To speak in a low, quiet and angry voice that is difficult to hear. Once again, they started using the words of that spell which they had used, which Mrs. Fitzgerald, you can say, had used at the beginning of the lesson. Astatadam, astatalum, astata, landam bona. These are some words related to the spell which Mrs. Fitzgerald had got command over, which she knew how to use. They carry out the same action as before. When the lesson began, you must have noticed the action of these two ladies. Now, both of them are repeating the same action. Going lax. Their bodies are not rigid, tense or firm. Lax. Not rigid, tense or firm. Their bodies had gone lax. Their bodies were not rigid or firm. And then coming to life. After this state, once again both of them regain their former personalities. You should understand this point clearly. But this time, of course, they become their proper personalities. After the chanting of the spell, once again they become their proper personalities. They have got their personalities once again, their respective personalities once again. They carry out the same action. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, I enjoyed that. after regaining her former personality, Mrs. Fitzgerald, now real Mrs. Fitzgerald, told real Mrs. Pearson that she had enjoyed that task of improving her family. Whose family? Mrs. Pearson's family. Mrs. Pearson, I didn't. Mrs. Pearson categorically denied. She told Mrs. Fitzgerald that she had not enjoyed that negative attitude, negative behavior towards her family. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, you ought to have done. Note the word ought to have. O-U-G-H-T, ought to. Nowadays, this expression is hardly used. In place of it, we use the word should. Well, you ought to have done. Mrs. Fitzgerald thought that real Mrs. Pearson should have enjoyed Mrs. Fitzgerald's task of improving her family. Whose family? Mrs. Pearson's family. Thank you, children.